There's not a lot of micro brands out there that are doing dress watches these days. Everyone seems to be focused more on divers and field watches, and especially GMT watches, which actually we're looking at a GMT watch today. But it's a beautiful dress watch with a GMT function added into it. Today we're going to be checking out one of my favorite micro brand dress watches in the Vario Empire, now with the new Miyota 9075 True GMT Traveler's Movement inside of it. A dress watch that's built for traveling. That's kind of an interesting pitch, but don't overthink it because this thing really looks beautiful. Take a quick look and then we'll jump into the review. Hey guys, welcome back to Just the Watch. My name's Dave. I live in Japan and I love to collect affordable watches. And that's kind of a cool tie-in because today the watch we're looking at was actually manufactured in Japan. Now, Vario is a micro brand that is based in Singapore, but this time they've done the manufacturing here in Japan for this watch, which I think is really cool. It's not something that you see too often, and yet Japan is not too far from Singapore. The Vario Empire is one of Vario's longest running designs. They've gone through a number of different iterations of it, and this is the first time that they've done a GMT version of it. This GMT version is based on the Seasons collection that they've previously done, so they have a different dial color for each season of the year, and all of the dial colors have a very beautiful, very unique, very fresh color scheme to them. I have the summer edition, which has a kind of light sky blue dial to it. However, this is part of a double review with Shane over at Relative Time, so make sure you head over to his channel and check out his review after you're done watching this one, because I believe he has the spring version, which has a very unique shade of green. So you'll definitely want to see that if you're interested in this watch and get a second opinion beyond my own review here. Being a dress watch, this has pretty modest proportions with a 38mm case diameter, but even though it has a modest size, it has a ton of visual impact. This watch is just really oozing with charm and character. Ivan over at Vario has really put a lot of love into every aspect of this watch and bringing out this 1920s style into a modern dress watch, now with the new Miyota 9075 GMT movement. So this is the first GMT edition of the Vario Empire. So if you're the kind of guy who likes to wear a suit on the plane while you're hopping between different time zones, this one's tailor-made for you. To me, it's kind of an odd choice, but I love to have a GMT function, and this really looks great on this watch, so I'm not going to think about it too hard. Another first for the Empire line is the addition of a bracelet, which really changes the character of the watch. Previously, this was offered only on a leather strap. And while Vario is giving you the bracelet this time around, they're also giving you one of their Italian leather straps, which is a beautiful strap. Vario, in addition to making micro brand watches, they're also known for their straps and accessories. So the straps that they offer and that they pair, these are very special straps. They're a lot higher quality than you're typically going to find on stock micro brand watches. Now, I do need to mention that this watch was given to me for free by Vario to facilitate this review, which is why you saw the paid promotions flag at the beginning of this video. However, other than the watch itself, Vario did not provide any compensation, nor did they have any input into the content of this review. So with all that out of the way, let's take a closer look at the Vario Empire GMT. I think that the Vario Empire is the best designed micro brand dress watch that I have reviewed. This is the third Vario Empire that I've looked at. I've looked at the mechanical hand wound version, I've looked at the chronograph version, and now the GMT version. And while the overall design has stayed consistent, there have been little tweaks and improvements as each iteration has come out. These new GMT versions are based on the Seasons edition of the Empire. So there are 4 colorful dial options, one for each season. This kind of sky blue color is for summer. And I believe Shane has the green spring edition. So if you want to see that one, make sure you head over to his channel next to check out his review. But overall, what Vario has done is create a design that's inspired by the 1920s Art Deco style and create a watch that just has so much character and personality to it. So they started with the sector dial design, which was very popular back in the 1920s, and this has this kind of central area that has this beautiful guilloche pattern on the dial, and then you have a ring, and then in the outer ring you have the markers for the hours. And they've done a beautiful job of integrating the GMT function into this watch by simply putting the GMT 24-hour ring on that ring of the sector dial. So you see that black raised applied ring. And when you combine that ring with the GMT hand, you can easily read a second time zone on this watch. It's a beautiful and seamless integration of that complication. It doesn't add any additional clutter, and I think that applied ring with the 24 hours on it actually enhances the overall look of the design. I think it looks even better with that applied 24-hour ring on the dial. It kind of exaggerates that sector dial look, but it does so with a functional purpose. The Empire also features a custom handset that is very unique and just has a very elegant and beautiful look to it. It's a delicate skeletonized handset with a very unique shape. The hour hand suggests the silhouette of the Empire State Building, while the minute hand is a long sword shape that goes all the way to the minute track on the outer edge of the dial, with a long needle-shaped second hand that really emphasizes that incredibly smooth beat rate on the Miyota 9075 movement. The shape and style of this handset is complemented perfectly with the font that's chosen for the numerals, which all really work well together to evoke this 1920s style design. The handset and the markers are all finished in a jet black, which contrasts brilliantly against that light blue dial, making for some excellent visibility. And I think that's a good thing because the dial, when you look closely, it's actually a pretty busy dial. There's a lot going on there, and it is one of the most gorgeous and mesmerizing dials that I've seen. So it definitely helps to have these very strong black contrasting markers for legibility. The blue on this dial is a light sky blue that just has a really fresh and fun color to it. The geoshaped pattern in the center of the dial has an almost hypnotic effect to it. And in the outer ring where the numerals are housed, there are these concentric circles that are lightly painted onto the dial, giving a slight pinstripe effect that is just beautiful to look at. And while the dial is by far the most visually striking aspect of this watch, Vario has really thought out every single detail of this. There's an elegant onion-style crown that just fits the design perfectly. And the case features some interesting accents on the lugs that have a little bit of a stepped effect to it, along with a curved, almost bulbous-looking bezel that adds even more depth and interest to the overall case shape. All of these elements come together to create a very beautiful and unique dress watch, one that is really fun to wear and is just oozing with personality. But this isn't an ordinary dress watch. This is a GMT watch with the new Miyota 9075 Traveler's GMT or True GMT, which adds a lot to this watch. Again, I think it adds a lot just in the visual sense, in adding that extra hand and that extra ring with the 24-hour dial on it. It adds some more complexity to the watch, as well as obviously giving you the ability to see what time it is in 2 different time zones rather than just the time zone that you're in, which is something that is very useful and desirable for a lot of people. But at the same time, it's kind of an interesting choice for this dress watch style. I mean, if I'm going to a wedding here in Japan, do I really need to know what time it is back in California? Or perhaps a more relevant question is, do you want to wear a dress watch while you're traveling across multiple time zones? Because that's what this Miyota 9075 GMT really does well. The whole point of a Traveler's GMT movement is to enable you to adjust the time on the main hour hand to the new time zone that you're entering without disrupting the timekeeping function of the watch or changing the GMT hand. This is done by allowing that main hour hand to jump in 1-hour increments while the GMT hand, minute hand, and second hand continue to function without stopping. It's a very cleverly designed function on a movement which is very specific to travelers. So again, that kind of begs the question, is this a watch that you would really wear when you're traveling around the country or around the world? And for a lot of people, it very well might be, especially if you tend to travel while being well dressed, then this watch might make a lot of sense for you. But personally, when I'm traveling, I'm more in a survival mode, and I think I would prefer to have something that at least has some lume on it and definitely something that also has a date function, which this watch does not have. The Miyota 9075 movement does support a date, however, there's just no real place to put a date into the design of this watch. The Vario Empire has always been a no-date watch, and it would really ruin the design to throw a date in there somewhere. And for a dress watch, it makes perfect sense to not have the date on the dial, but it makes a lot less sense to have a no-date GMT Traveler's watch. So I bring all of that up kind of more as questions, not necessarily as cons. This is definitely an unconventional watch, but even though this watch doesn't quite follow the rules, I think that it's still going to find a lot of appeal with a lot of people. The question is, are you one of them? And that's an important question to ask because this watch does come at a significantly higher cost than previous versions of the Empire. For instance, the non-GMT version of this exact same watch, which which featured the Seiko NH38 automatic movement, cost half of what this GMT edition is being listed at. And while that's a pretty big jump in price, there are some very good reasons for that, so let's jump through what those are. The first is that Vario is including both the bracelet and a leather strap with this edition. Previous editions only came with the leather strap, but the bracelet is available for an additional $70. And I think the Empire looks great on the stainless steel bracelet. This is a faux 5-link style bracelet that has alternating brushing and polishing. And I think on the bracelet, this watch looks incredibly elegant, even to the point of it looking almost like a piece of jewelry. Combined with that Art Deco style, it kind of reminds me of the types of watches Cartier used to make back in the day. The bracelet features a hidden butterfly style clasp that operates very smoothly and again gives the watch a very elegant look. It feels very comfortable and is well balanced. However, it might be difficult to get a perfect fit given that there are no micro adjusts or half links here, but I was able to get a pretty good fit on my 7.5-inch wrist. Another reason for the price jump compared to previous versions of the Empire is that this one is made in Japan, which I'm pretty sure is the first time that Vario has done that, and that's a very unusual move for a microbrand to make. Basically, every other microbrand watch that I'm aware of either manufactures their watches in China to keep costs down or in Switzerland to have the prestige of putting Swiss made on the dial. Presumably, manufacturing your watches in Japan would be a kind of middle ground, especially for a watch brand based out of Singapore like Vario. Geographically, Japan is not too far from Singapore, so having the manufacturing done here in Japan also makes it easier for Vario to keep tabs on how things are going. And when it comes to manufacturing watches, Japan is one of the most prestigious places in the world for it. Japan does still kind of seem to sit in the shadow of the Swiss watch industry, but if you want to start a fight, you can make the case that they surpassed Switzerland a long time ago. Personally, I really like the choice of doing the manufacturing here in Japan, but whether or not that's important to you is going to depend on your tolerance for paying higher costs and probably on a lot of political issues as well. And finally, the most obvious reason why this watch costs more than previous ones is because of that new Miyota 9075 GMT movement. While the Miyota 9075 is billed as a more affordable traveler's or true GMT movement, by affordable, what that really means is that it can be found in watches under $1,000, which previously was pretty much unheard of for a traveler's GMT movement. Previously, the GMT movements that you would find on watches under $1,000 were commonly known as a caller's GMT or an office GMT, which is a GMT movement where the GMT hand will jump in 1-hour increments rather than the main hour hand. From an engineering and cost perspective, this is a much easier movement to manufacture. And for most use cases, it's not going to make a huge difference to a lot of people. But that meant that the Traveler's GMT or True GMT was kind of limited to luxury watches until now. All that said, to find a watch with a True GMT movement in it at this $700 price point is very reasonable. And while the Miyota 9075 is still a very new movement, coming in at this $700 price point, the Vario Empire GMT is in line with what we're seeing from a lot of other manufacturers who are using the same movement in similarly priced watches. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for today. Thank you all for watching. Drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of the idea of a traveler's dress watch. Is this something you would actually wear for traveling, or would you just like to have a GMT and a dress watch and you like the style, or is it kind of a step too far for you? I suspect that there's going to be a range of opinions here. Unique watches like these tend to bring out some stronger emotions in people. You're either going to really love this watch and really be drawn to all of the beautiful aspects of it, or it's just really not going to click with you. Let me know what you think down below. And if you're interested in picking up a watch themed t-shirt like this one, you can get it on my website at justthewatch.com. That will wrap it up for today. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.